Alright guys, my name is Tyler aka Nanogenics, and today guys, we
on the JP side of the game. Now, I'm not normally a big fan of physical cards, but this one's a bit cooler than normal.
Cooler or Kura final form.
We got Cooler. Cooler is here and he's actually really powerful, really strong.
The month of March started with, as you guessed it, a new Dokkan Fest, but most importantly a new Neo Gods leader. Cooler was the extreme physical type Neo Gods leader, and let me tell you, this guy was insane. He had an immense damage multiplier while greatly lowering defense on super, 100% attack and defense at the start of turn, a phenomenal link set, and the ability to launch an additional attack that had a 10% chance of being a super attack, which might look like trash nowadays, but at the time this was something else. Like, the additional alone would give you a decent amount of additional damage, even if it didn't proc as a super. And thanks to the hidden potential system, it was actually possible for you to super 3 times within the same turn with this guy, which was rare, but when it happened, this was probably the unit doing the most damage in a single turn in the whole game. Because let's not forget that even though physical Vegeta Blue could super like 4 times, while Cooler had a 100% attack buff at the start of turn, while also having the potential to super thrice and greatly lowering the enemy's defense 3 times. Something that you probably didn't think about because most bosses nowadays are immune to it, but at the time that wasn't the case, so greatly lowering the defense of the enemy 3 times was something. Cooler also came with some new Dokkan Awakenings.
Hey, that's the tech one. That's the tech one. I'll take the tech one. I'll take the tech one too. I'll take the tech one.
Tech Final Form Cooler, even though not as good as his Dokkan Fest counterpart, was still a decent option on a monotech team. His 12k multiplier was 5% higher than Dokkan Fest Physical Cooler. He could stun on super with a supreme damage multiplier, had an unconditional 90% start of turn attack buff, and a decent link set, sharing 3 links with Tech Gold and Frieza. His leader skill was also not bad if you didn't have any of the other rainbow leaders. AGL Baba Shop Cooler was, well, actually quite decent for a free-to-play unit. He had no condition on his passive, a supreme damage multiplier, and most importantly, the Fierce Battle link. This was the first free-to-play unit ever to have that link, also making him the first Fierce Battle unit with an under 40 unit cost. So yeah, he was good. His HP stat was very low though, especially for TUR. AGL Towser was, I guess, also not bad for a semi-free-to-play card. He had an OK sub-leader skill, a supreme damage multiplier, and gave 2k and 20% attack and defense to Tech and AGL type allies. His link set was quite bad though. Like, half of his links were almost impossible to proc. Honestly, even to this day, they are like nowhere to be seen. But at least he had shock and speed, which I guess was good. Cooler also came with a new banner unit. Tech Kid Gohan was quite an interesting character. He had a supreme damage multiplier, could stun on super, had an insanely low team cost for a summonable unit, and had a built-in Senzu as his passive. Pretty much AGL Whiz's passive, but with an additional 200% attack for that turn. So even though his link set was complete garbage, this guy had some value solely because of that passive, and he was a beast on Super Strike events, thanks to his low team cost and not so bad Rainbow Leader skill. This guy was also a game changer for the Boss Rush event, since he had the sustainability that the Super Class teams were missing. Cooler's banner was also pretty good actually. It featured 4 other Dokkan Fest characters and Tech Cooler alongside the 2 new units, so actually a very decent banner. Fun fact, but Cooler and the Super Saiyan 4s were called the Big 3 at the time, just because of how good they were and how much they actually gapped the rest of the game. So just for him, that banner was probably worth your stones. As for Cooler's Dokkan event, his gimmick is that you weren't allowed to bring Senzu Beans or a Nickers super type item. Like, I guess they really wanted you to summon for that new Kid Gohan, even though he wasn't a must like at all, since Cooler was weak to Super Saiyan Goku cards, so all you had to do really is bring a God team with a Prime Battle LR Goku, and that event was pretty much a breeze. Nothing really challenging. At the same time, they also released the first Book of War that you could exchange for one of the family Kamehameha units, Tech Cooler or in Super Saiyan Gohan. The selection of characters were obviously good for the time, but there's a caveat. That book wasn't given for free the first time around. You actually had to buy it in the shop with a stone pack. And of course, I did some digging to find out what the price actually was. And I found out that you could buy that book as well as 60 Dragon Stones for 3,800 yen, which is roughly $25 USD. Like, for the time, this wasn't as bad. Definitely not worth it in my book, but by far not the worst deal they ever offered. That celebration also had a typical login bonus campaign. It wasn't anything crazy, but I guess worth pointing out. Almost a week later, Dokkan was officially 7 days away from reaching 777 days. So we were getting closer to 1000 days Goku. But nonetheless, to celebrate 777 days of Dokkan, they held a little countdown login bonus campaign, giving a total of 10 stones. The next day, Kid Vegeta got his Super Strike event, another AGL unit. Frieza's Prime Battle event was becoming easier by the days. Nonetheless, Kid Vegeta was decent. He had a Neisei 15 extreme damage multiplier, which I think I should have mentioned earlier because I don't think he's the first unit to have that, but yeah, it's the equivalent of a Neisei 10 supreme damage multiplier. So yeah, he was very good for a fish play unit, especially coupled with his 50% start of turn attack buff and not so bad link set. Another day later, they released the first ever batch of those special monotype supports, leading their respective class type for 3k and 50% HP attack and defense, while also giving an additional 3k to that same type in their passive and 40% attack and defense to all allies of that type that share the same class as the leader. Physical Teen Gohan was not that great on release. Like, sure, he could stun on Super, but since the super physical Neo Gods leader was still not in game, and the physical Gods leader was not only extreme but arguably one of the worst Dokkan Fest at the time, his support type buff could not be fully maximized. Like, you could probably still get a decent amount of damage out of physical Vegeta Blue with him on rotation, but nothing really meta breaking. Physical Super Buu on the other hand was quite good. He recovered 50% HP on Super, which was insane at the time, and since he was extreme physical, he was a GOAT on physical Cooler's team, and fitted perfectly there. And I'm pretty sure physical Kid Buu was still meta relevant on Cooler's team solely thanks to his support, and luckily this guy shared 4 links with Kid Buu, so you could have an insane rotation with 2 Boos giving almost 100% attack and defense to the entire rotation. So you can only imagine how ridiculous that was at the time. His super attack was also farmable, which was just the cherry on top. As for the banner, it wasn't anything crazy, but it did give 2 Elder Kais per multi-summons, so I guess it did give some value to that banner. 5 days later, the 777 days Dokkan celebration officially started, and oh boy were the login bonus rewards insane. The first day, everyone was gifted 21 stones, with at least 2 stones every single day for the whole month. And not only that, the day 1 players who had logged in for 777 days were rewarded with copies of a new Hercule. But AGL Hercule was honestly just a trophy card. Like, sure, his leader skill coupled with his team cost and heal on Super might have made him a good option for Super Strike events, but that passive and defensive stats were just too much of a drawback. Like, you had way better future play options even at the time. And let's not forget that this was a card given to veterans, so for sure these guys had better options. They also put some missions in game. The rewards were actually not bad, like it gave some potential orbs and Elder Kais, like not bad at all.
Alright guys, name is Tyler aka Nanogenics, and guys, we finally have some details on this masked Saiyan Bardock, Timebreaker Bardock, what do you guys want to call him, and the brand new Super Saiyan 3 Goku that will be dropping on the 18th.
Oh, Super Saiyan 3! What we got? Let me get the Angel Goku. Let me get a dupe. Can we get a dupe? Oh, we got a Bardock dupe. I will take the Bardock dupe. Hey!
Come on, come on, come on, come on.
Okay! Got him! Got him! Woo!
This is what I'm talking about, ladies and gentlemen. Wow. What do you want to say, man?
Another one!
3 days later, and it was time for the first ever Saiyan Day units. We got a new Super Saiyan 3 Goku and Masked Saiyan, who were both featured on the same banner. A banner that was actually pretty decent. Excluding the new Masked Saiyan, every single other unit in the banner was a Dokkan Fest character. Not the best ones per se, but decent characters nonetheless. So this was a banner worth summoning for if you had none of the other characters rainbowed. Tech Angel Super Saiyan 3 Goku was the super tech type Neo Gods leader, a team that wasn't really good unfortunately. Like, the only actually decent super tech unit other than him was Tech's First Entry Gotenks. All of the other tech Dokkan Fest were extreme, except for like Beerus, but by that point I think it was safe to say that Beerus was just not that great anymore. Nonetheless, Tech Angel Super Sentry Goku had a 20% chance of stunning on Super, a 120% start of turn attack buff, and an additional 20% attack per Rainbow Key Spheres obtained. So this guy could potentially get up to 220% attack on a single turn. Like, sure, it was extremely rare, but when it happened, oh boy was his damage insane. His link set was kind of not great though. Like, his only key link was over in a flash, much, but he did share 4 links with Text Percentry Gotenks, who like I said earlier was still very good, and since they only shared the 1 key link together, you could actually manage to get Gotenks 11 key out, dishing out some insane amount of damage under Goku's new leader skill, and at the same time just save out all of the rainbow orbs for Goku. This honestly might have been one of the strongest rotation damage wise at the time. The free to play showdown Goku could now also be awakened into a Super Saiyan 3 Angel Goku. And he was good. He had a mini God's leader for the tech type, a supreme damage multiplier, and a 50% chance of gaining 180% attack at the start of turn. Okay, sure, it was a coin flip ability, but when it procced, the enemy was pretty much dead, making this guy a staple on almost every free-to-play teams for years to come. Like, you have no idea, bro. This guy was just the GOAT back then. I don't even think that's a reach to say. Honestly, this might be a hot take, but if you remove the leader skill, this guy was just a less consistent version of his Dokkan Fest counterpart. I might even go as far as to say that if you had this guy rainbowed, he was actually better than his Dokkan Fest counterpart at 55%. I still remember this to this day, pulling his Dokkan Fest counterpart like a year later and being just so disappointed because it genuinely felt like a worse unit. Like, the free-to-play variant just felt way stronger, bro. Like, I kid you not, bro. Text Percent 2 Angel Goku was not bad. Like, he was a decent floater on Angel's Percent 3 Goku's team. He had 5 key and 12,000 attack as the third attacker in a turn and a decent link set. So yeah, I really don't have much to add. This guy was just decent. Nothing less, nothing more. Tech Master Saiyan was also not bad. He pretty much had Rose's and Vegito Blue's leader skills combined, giving all types 3 key and 50% HP attack and defense. So he was the first actual viable rainbow leader. But since extreme and super class units didn't work well together, it pretty much meant nothing and wasn't anything crazy. Unless obviously we're missing Rose or Vegito Blue. He had an immense damage multiplier, one of the very few non-Dokkan Fest units to do so, while also being able to lower attack and defense on super, which as you already know was like an insane ability at the time, and a huge 50,000 attack and 20,000 defense when facing 2 or less enemies. That attack buff was equivalent to 218% attack under a regular 70% monogods leader, which was insane. But obviously it lost value the higher the leader skill buff was, thanks to how like flat stat buff are added after leader skill buff. I'm not gonna bore you with the technicalities and calculations, but under a 120% neogods leader skill, his attack buff was equivalent to about 154% attack, which was still very good, but not as crazy as like 218% attack, you know. But still very good, very good.
Out of him and Super Saiyan 3 Angel Goku, I wanted him the most because there's so much different things you can do with him. Like, he can tank, he can debuff, he can do disgusting damage. He's a freaking rainbow leader. Goku's just a god lead for the tech units and he can do damage. That's all Goku can do. People say Goku's better. Goku is not better. Don't yo, like, come at me if you want. This guy's better because you can use him for various things beyond just doing tons of damage. Goku can only do damage. This guy debuffs, tanks, and does damage, so yes.
Text Percent Bardock didn't get much, but actually enough for him to make a comeback. He could still steal on super, which was incredible, while also still being an orb changer, changing strength type key spheres to tech, and his start of turn attack buff went from 20 to 40% attack, which was, like I said, nothing crazy but decent. And his link set was also still very good, so yeah, he was a good unit. Strength Super Saiyan 2 Bardock, even though not the god that he once was still a decent card. He now raised his attack by 50% on super for 6 turns, gave 30% attack to all allies when above 30% HP, and still had a decent link set. Like, if you were an OG, his Dokkan Awakening was probably very disappointing, because as you guys remember, on release Strength Percent Bardock was an absolute beast. Like, he was the best unit in the game, so you would expect this guy to at least be the best non-Dokkan Fest TUR, or at least close to it. But nah, he was just like decent at best. Like, he was a good filler unit on like Super Saiyan 4 Goku's team, but obviously just people expected more from the GOAT, you know, the OG, the first best unit in the game, like the first hype summonable character. you know the history, bro. Physical Super Saiyan Bardock also didn't get much, and also not as good as his prime, but still, like Strength Super Saiyan Bardock, a decent card, probably the best Super Saiyan Bardock out of the 3. He could still steal on super, which was good, and as for his passive, he now gave an additional 20% attack next to his 2 key, which disappointed actually a lot of people at the time, because they expected him to now give at least 3 key to the entire rotation, and to also remove that HP restriction, but whatever, he was still decent. That Baba Shop Angel's Percent to Goku could now be Dokkan Awakened into an Angel Super Saiyan 3 Goku, and even though not as good as his 2 tech counterparts, he was still decent. He had a 20% chance of stunning on super and 3k and 7000 attack and defense at the start of turn. So yeah, he was good, but his grind was, like I explained earlier, very tedious. So unless you already had farmed his UR form, this guy was probably just not worth the hassle. As for the 2 new Dokkan events, Angel Super Saiyan 3 Goku's Dokkan event was not bad. He had the same gimmick as the OG Angel Super Saiyan 3 Goku's Dokkan event. So a finishing attack that would instantly kill you on the last round, but you could easily just bring a Gust Usher, and as long as you were able to finish Goku in that one turn, the event was fairly easy. Otherwise, that event was kind of challenging and required some RNG. Maskudu Saiyan Dokkan event was much easier. His only gimmick is that his super attack had a chance of sealing you, so easily doable with any God's team. The man himself said it.
This is so much easier.
You remember that Bunny Bulma login bonus campaign at the beginning of the year? Well, the event that was related to it was now out. I have no idea why they released the login bonus campaign 2 months earlier, but it was clear that this was an April Fool event, where you could farm a new monster character and some carrot medals awaken some old Bulmas. Int Monster Carrot was nothing crazy. He had a 20% chance of stunning on super and a 30% chance of stunning the attacked enemy as his passive. So yeah, another Int type stunner. Like, I don't know why, but the Int type was just so stacked with stunners. Like, bro, 3 of the summonable stunners were Int, and most of the Int type SRs and R characters have some sort of stun in their kit. Like, it's crazy. This guy could also super at 9k when his super attack was at level 5 or more, so he was probably worth the grind if you wanted another stunner on your Int team that could super early. Tech Bunny Bulma was not bad. She could steal on super, had a support type passive giving 3000 attack and defense to all types, and had a unique name, so you could run her alongside other Bulmas. So yeah, if you needed a sealer on your tech team, she was not bad and had some use. Int Bulma was also not bad. She had a 20% chance of stunning on super, a 30% chance of stunning all enemies at the start of turn, and gave 2k to all allies. So yet again, another Int type stunner. And now that I think about it, she was probably a good unit to bring into the World Tournament, thanks to her being able to stun all enemies at the start of turn like in Jacko, but while also giving key to the entire rotation. Physical Bulma got a new Dokkan Awakening not even a month later. So as you could probably guess, they almost gave her nothing, since she was already quite good as a UR. So instead of recovering 7777 HP on her super and passive, she now recovered 8880 HP. And instead of getting 3k at the start of turn, she now had 4. She also went from an extreme to super damage multiplier, and surprisingly her team cost was still very low. So this was just an all-around upgrade. Like, she was too good for no reason, bro. Like, I guess they like Bulma. Honestly, I think the devs just like Pipigal's units, because bro, as you'll see, like, there's so many instances during the history of Dokkan where Pipigal's units are just crazy good for no reason. Angel Killer Conifla literally broke the game on release. They literally broke the game. So yeah, they just like Pipigals, but the devs just like Pipigals units. Before the end of the month, we got the update 3.3.0, which came with quite a big update. So just so you know, before that update, characters that permanently stacked, like Int Ultimate Gohan, had their buffs completely removed every time you would change phases in a fight. But now after this update, the stacks would finally carry over between phases and be permanent, so that was huge for stacking characters like Strength Cell and Int Ultimate Gohan, making them even better now. Even though it might have been a little bit too late for Gohan, but still it did open up the possibilities of having more OP stackers in the future. At the end of the month, the devs announced that a new game would be available the next day, Dragon Ball Z Saibai Battle. And by taking a look at the news, it looked pretty fun, honestly. You could play as multiple Cybermans or Yamcha, I guess. Like, finally a new game mode. But jokes aside, this was obviously an April Fool, but they did give every player the infamous Cyberman card. And if you didn't know, this was the login screen when they came out, and this is their card art. Yeah, they were literally just a parody of the login screen, which I don't know how, but never realized until now. But yeah, that card was decent for Super Strike events, thanks to their very low team cost, and not so bad passive. Like, 81% attack and defense when facing 3 or less enemies was quite good for the time, and bro, they did immense damage. I'm pretty sure this was the only non-TR card in the game to have an immense damage multiplier. Okay, like, sure, you lost like 10% HP after every super, but that immense damage multiplier coupled with that start of an attack buff was worth the drawback. So I guess like an actual usable meme card, surprisingly. Int Baseball Yamcha also got a Dokkan Awakening at the same time, and he was, I guess, slightly better. Like, he went from having a huge extreme damage multiplier from 4000 to 5000 attack at the start of the turn, could could still stun on super and still had a low team cost. So yeah, not a bad card for Super Strike events. But that was pretty much it.